Hey guys, welcome to Tiny Fibre Studio. This is episode 11 of a podcast about knitting, spinning, and specifically about me trying to knit with my own handspun in 2017. As you can probably see, I have 2 new co-stars because a lot's been happening since I last saw you, which was a long time ago. This is Safi. Say hello, Safi. No, okay. And the one on my lap is Dexter. I'm currently wearing a cat cam so that you can see currently a view of Safi's bum. Thanks, Saf. I thought I'd give this a go, you know, see how it went, see exactly how much chaos they can cause in the course of recording this episode. We'll see. I'll keep switching to the cat cam so that you can see exactly what's happening. This is Dexter. You gonna say hello? You gonna say hello? Maybe. You'll probably just see lots of tails, let's be honest. Safi's currently clawing at the tripod. Excellent. Today is New Year's Eve, which means that unless I have any major lapses in concentration, by the end of the day I will have finished Handspun 17. So I will have only knitted with my own handspun in 2017. I'll be honest, it's a bit of a hollow victory because I don't really feel like I've knitted or spun anything very much in that time. But I'm going to go through and just kind of round up the last few months. It has been a long time since I last did an episode. Apologies for that, but hopefully you can understand why it's taken so long. First big thing was that I bought a house. It's the first time I've done that. It was a very stressful process. I do not want to have to go through that again. I ended up being off work with kind of stress-related stuff for about 2 months nearly. So that was very, very stressful. And I decided to throw the kittens into the mix at the same time, which was an interesting concept. I'm not convinced that that was a great decision, but hey, they've kept me occupied and kept my mind off all the stress going on. So actually, they've probably been quite good. So I'll just kind of run through a few of the things that I've been working on. When I say recently, I mean in the last 4 or 5 months. The only bit of spinning that I've really done is this. There's quite a lot of it, which is good. This is, you're going to get sick of me saying this, but World of Wool's Corriedale carded. Amazing. I wanted to, in the midst of all the stress, I just wanted something really kind of mindless that I could just get into. And I find it really, really easy spinning this stuff. So I just kind of threw it at the wheel and saw what happened. No planning, nothing, just literally throw it at the wheel and see what happens. So that's what emerged. I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to do with it. I'll have a little think and see what I can come up with for that. But it's really lovely and like soft and squishy and bouncy and awesome. So very happy with that. And it was a really good stress reliever when I needed it. So that was cool. And then the only thing that I've really been knitting on recently, mostly because of the cats, is this one. So these are my socks. They're just really vanilla socks, but in handspun that kind of graduates from purple through to green and back again to purple. I'm currently on the cuffs and kind of just carrying on until I get to slightly more purple than it is at the moment, and then I'll probably stop. I picked those up and started knitting on them because the kittens were really little and I was trying to get them used to me knitting, but also just needed something that was fairly mindless. and that I didn't have to concentrate on. I think the only other thing that I really had on the needles at the time, which is handspun, is the pixelated pullover blank canvas mashup, which I don't even know if I've shown in the podcast before. I almost had to re-watch the last couple of episodes to just figure out what I had and hadn't talked about. But to be honest, I didn't have time to do that. So, so this is where we're up to on blank canvas pixelated pullover. Do not chew that leather, madam. We're up to there, so that's kind of going into the bust increases. I quite like that. Let me just turn it around to the bit that doesn't have yarn hanging off it. There we go. So yeah, I quite like that. It's coming out the way that I wanted and expected it to, so that's all good. And yeah, that's been pretty much it. I really haven't knitted on a lot else. As I say, I just wanted something that was mindless, that I could just kind of continue going in rounds until I was ready to be able to kind of sit and concentrate on something. That could take a while because the kittens could take quite a while to calm down. If you remember, this was Shetland woolen spun, and I'd spun the yarn for it a couple of years ago, even quite a long time ago. I'm really happy with it. The only issue is that it does take a fair amount of concentration, because it would seem like keeping it looking random would be an easy thing to do, and it's not. Your mind starts kind of creating patterns where there shouldn't be one. So I have had to stick to the charts on this. I have the charts all kind of written out on my iPad, and it kind of needs me to be able to reference that at the same time and keep an eye on where I am in the rows. And because the patterns are so random, it's really hard to keep track of. It's not like a traditional Shetland pattern where it might be 3 stitches of one colour and then 1 of another, and you just repeat that for the whole row, or even a short pattern repeat. This is long pattern repeats and quite difficult to keep track of. So I haven't knitted on that for a while, but I'm up to the bust increases, and I do want to finish it, but I might have a little bit of a break from it for a while. So those are my last 2 handspun 17 projects. As I said, I really haven't done a lot of knitting or spinning at all. I think I've finished the hot water bottle cover that I think I finished within the first couple of weeks of January. The cowl, the Isolde cowl that I reknit twice, which I have been using a lot on my bike to and from work. I've been using that all the time, so that's got a lot of use, and it looks amazing still, so very, very happy with that. And yeah, then really blank canvas and pixelated pullover mashup and the socks, and that's it really. Don't feel like I've done as much as I would have liked, but it was the wrong year to try and do this, to be honest. There was so much stress going on that it was the wrong time. So hey ho, lesson learned. Don't try and start a podcast or try and start a yarn challenge when you know that it's going to be a really stressful year. So going into 2017, what are the things that I'm going to be working on? I've already pulled together all of the projects that I was working on before I stopped knitting with commercial yarn, and probably the first thing that I'm going to pick back up is this one, which I just had to kind of jab needles into to get the cats away from them. This is Malabrigo, and it's going to be a double layer cowl. So I'm knitting a big tube, which I will then kind of seam together, so it'll be 2 layers, and it's just really simple, just little striped cowl. It'll be nice to have another cowl to use when the weather gets a little bit warmer, rather than going straight to the Isolde cowl, which is really lovely and warm for this time of year, and I did the longer length, so it's a double wrap, but it'll be nice to have something cooler to transition to. So that's probably going to be the first thing that I start back up on. I also have a couple of other things that I've picked up as stuff that I really need to finish. And the main one is this, which is Ishnana, also an Isolde Teague pattern. The stuff that Isolde designs just happens to work really well for me, so I do a lot of her designs. It's going to be really hard to actually see this because I've currently got the sleeves on one needle, both sleeves. I do sleeves 2 at a time, as the same as I do for socks. But this is the back. I did change the back pattern. The original back pattern is kind of a cabled one. I'm going to be honest, that back cable pattern kind of looked like something else to me, and there is nothing wrong with that something else, but I didn't really want it on the back of my cardigan, so I switched it. And I love the rest of the pattern, so the rest of the pattern is staying exactly the same, just that back panel has changed. That is from Vulmees, massive ball of Vulmees, and that will do the entire thing. So that's all nice and ready to go. What I do need to do is to remind myself of whereabouts I am in that pattern. I'm pretty sure it's still in my stitch marking app, but I just need to kind of make sure I've got a track of where I am with that. So yeah, as I mentioned, I have now moved into my house. There's a lot of things still to do, as I'm sure there is with every house, but it was kind of ready to move into immediately and didn't really need a huge amount of stuff doing. But the thing that's slightly irritating is that the finish is not at the level that I would have done. If I ever meet the contractors, they are in for a serious shock. There are little things that just really irritate me, and I have quite a lot of attention to detail, so there are small things, but they make a massive difference to me, and they're really annoying me. So those things will need to get changed. Also, at the moment, the cats are having to stay in one room when I'm out of the house. It is a nice long room, so they've got plenty of room to run around. There's plenty of room for their, water and their food to be separate from each other, and their food and water and their litter tray to be separate from each other. But they ultimately will get free run of the house. The only problem is I am currently in my living room and my front door is literally right there. So when I open the front door to come in from work or what have you, I can't sort of stop them running out into the road. They are indoor cats, so I just don't know how they would react at the moment. So probably the biggest thing is that there's going to be a gate built, which will go on to the fence that kind of leads out to the road. That way I can come in through that gate and in through the side extension, and that way the side extension will be like a kind of airlock, so the cats won't be able to go in there, but I'll be able to kind of get my bike and myself in when I come home from work and all that. So that needs to be done. Lots of other little bits, but nothing really substantial. The other thing is that at the moment I don't have any Wi-Fi, which is driving me insane. Or actually, technically, I have Wi-Fi, I just don't have an internet connection. it's driving me a little bit nuts. Hopefully that will be sorted out on the 2nd. Just cross your fingers and hope that I actually get an internet connection. My plan is to try and upload this tomorrow from a different location, but again, we'll see. So yeah, really haven't done a lot of knitting or spinning in 2017, certainly not since the last episode. It was all just really stressful, and to be honest, I kind of got to a point where I didn't really have a lot of energy for anything, whether it was things to do with the house purchase or spinning, knitting, any of that stuff. Just zero energy or enthusiasm for any of it. Fortunately, I feel like this week is the week where things have started to kind of come back together a little bit. I finally have a sofa. It's taken a while for the sofa to get here. So I finally have a sofa. That means that I can just chill out and lie on the sofa when I come home from work in the evenings. The kittens, I think I don't know whether I mentioned this, but one of the things for me about buying a house was having the ability to have a pet or two of some description without anybody else's permission and without having to worry about whether when you next move, you're going to be able to take that pet with you. For a lot of people who rent in the UK, it's really hard to find landlords who will accept you having pets. So I was always of the opinion that I'm not going to have a pet until I'm in a situation where I don't have to worry about that, because it's not fair to, you know, get a cat or a dog and then have to give them up because you can't take them with you when you next move. I have friends who are currently having to pay 6 months rent in advance every time so that they can have their 2 dogs with them. I don't want to have to deal with that either. So getting a pet was one of those things that I wanted to do once I had my own house. And I somehow ended up with these guys. This is one of them. This is Safi. Hey. I think originally I was going to get a dog, but thinking about it a lot more, I'm just not in a position right now to have a dog. I have to spend too much time out of the house, and you know, these guys are a little bit more able to look after themselves when I'm out. So these guys are Tonkinese. Tonkinese is a breed that I kind of admired for a long time. I have a friend who introduced me to her 2 Tonkinese quite a few years ago, and I was really impressed with their personalities and intelligence sometimes. And there's a breeder locally who had a litter available just as I was moving in. So there was a week where myself and the cats had no furniture. It was it was an interesting week, that one. I'm not going to do that again either. So yeah, there you go. Bought a house, got cats, doing lots of stuff to the house. That's pretty much it. A little bit of knitting and spinning along the way, but not much. In terms of the things that I've learnt from HANDSPUN 17, I probably haven't learnt as much as I would have liked to, mostly just because I haven't done as much as I would have liked. I definitely would have liked to have got better at planning for projects and all that stuff, but hey ho, it wasn't the right year to start doing that. Maybe I'll do it again another year, or maybe I'll pick a month or a season or something where I just spin for planned projects. But I probably won't do HANDSPUN 18. That's not going to happen. I have a lot of projects lined up, both the works in progress that you've already seen and also some planned projects with commercial yarn. I think the other thing that I really learnt from it was I really like supporting indie dyers and indie makers of various different descriptions. So I'm looking forward to being able to, hopefully, fingers crossed, go to Edinburgh and get some nice hand-dyed yarns there, because I have really missed that side of it. Some other planned projects. This blanket here is a cheap IKEA one, but I want to hand knit a blanket in the same colourway because it goes really well with my nice teal sofa, and it will go well with some bar stools that I'm going to buy as well. So I want to do that. The pattern that I'm thinking of, I think, is made for Brooklyn tweed. Brooklyn tweed is not going to last 5 minutes in this house. I have a blanket which I put on the chair that I was using before I got the sofa, and Safi chewed a hole in it. Admittedly, that was within the first sort of week or so of having her, and I think it might have been a bit of a comfort thing, but yeah, she managed to chew a hole in it. So I'm a little bit careful about what I leave in her way. She hasn't done that behaviour for quite a while though, so I think I might be getting to the stage where I can afford to have hand knit blankets out without her chewing through them, maybe. So yeah, probably not Brooklyn tweed for the replacement blanket for this, but I will take suggestions. There's a couple of blacker yarns ones that I might look at. So yeah, there you go. That's a bit of a roundup of what's been happening. Apologies, this is probably not the most coherent podcast I've ever done, but I'm really conscious about what the cats are doing. They've been up on the counters, chewing electrical cables and all sorts of things while I've been doing this, so apologies for any weird edits that I've had to put in. I still have not reached the end of the series of videos that I did about my various different spinning wheels, so I'm going to start that. So I'm going to continue that with the one that I shot about the SCHACT SIDEKICK. That's the next one in the series. So I've done the Ash for Joy, I've done the SCHACT Matchless, SCHACT SIDEKICK is next up. So here you go, here is a little bit of information about the SCHACT SIDEKICK and my story behind acquiring it. In here is the third of the wheels in my collection, which is a SCHACT SIDEKICK. I thought I'd show you it while it's still in the bag because this is the bag that I carry it around in if I'm taking it out anywhere, because it's very handy. It has a handle that pops up out of the back and it has wheels on the bottom as well, so it makes it very, very easy to move around. The bag is made by a company called Typhoon and it's a shopping bag. Basically, it's one of those kind of wheeled shopping bags. It just about fits in there. Sometimes it's a little bit of a wrestle to get it in the bag, but it's a really good option if you're looking for something to transport not just to and from a car, but actually taking it across town or what have you. This is a really good option. So let's pop it out the bag and see what the SCHACT SIDEKICK is like. So the SIDEKICK is a fairly unusual travel wheel because unlike most wheels where the wheel is kind of parallel with the spinner, in this case it faces 90 degrees from the spinner. So it's kind of an odd setup. Some people find that really hard to get on with, but for me, I find it quite straightforward. I'll just show you a couple of little features on here. So first of all, on this side, this is where the flyer gets stored away. So when you are travelling with it, you pop your flyer in there and that keeps it nice and safe. All the hooks are nicely protected against the bottom of the treadle, and it's all nice and protected so that when you come to actually set it up again, all you need to do is just slide this section out and put the flyer to one side, ready to put that on later. So to actually continue setting it up, you undo the two screws down on the ends of the treadles. So there's number 1 out, and there's number 2. So then you just fold the treadles down, push them together. They line up with this little quick release lever here, so you just push that in. That keeps them nice and stable. Then you take the rods and connect those back up with the screws that you took off earlier. Making sure that you attach the rods into the lower of the 2 screw holes. So you can already see that this does take a lot more time to set up than the Ashford Joy. So for some people, if the ease and speed of setting the wheel up is a really important thing for you, then that might be something to consider as a downside. But I think there are plenty more upsides to think about with this as well. So those are our treadles assembled. Then we're going to do the flyer assembly. So with the flyer assembly, obviously we've got the flyer itself here. This again has 2 little quick release levers. So I just release those 2 and then bring up the maidens. I have a bobbin here that I'd kind of forgotten I was spinning, to be perfectly honest. Should probably follow that up at some stage. And what I do when I pack it away is I always wrap the drive bands and the brake bands around the Scotch tension knob, just because it stops them from coming completely loose. So then you just undo one of the whirls. The whirls again are carried on the wheel itself, which I find is really nice, and again it's kind of like the Ashford Joy. When we talked about that, everything was on board, and again most things can be on board here. The only difference is that you can only carry 1 bobbin actually on the wheel. So on goes the bobbin and the whirl. So we've got our assembled flyer, and we're just going to remove the drive bands and the brake bands and just pop those over the back for a moment while we slot in the flyer into the back and front maidens. And then the brake bands goes over and onto the end of the bobbin, and the drive band goes onto whichever ratio of the whirl you're going to be using. The way that it's all driven I think is really interesting, and I love the teal of the wheel, which actually matches the fibre that I'm spinning on it quite nicely. So I love the way that the assembly is built so that it can be a sideways drive wheel. The thing that some people find a little bit confusing about that is when they start treadling, they don't know whether the wheel going away from them is clockwise or coming towards them is clockwise. Just to be clear, you want the wheel going away from you. So if you imagine that this wheel was twisted 90 degrees that way, it's the same thing. So that's what you would normally get from a traditional wheel. I find it really quite easy to treadle. I know some other people have said that they find it either difficult to treadle or that the drive wheel confuses them because they can't tell whether it's clockwise or counterclockwise. I've never really found that to be a problem, to be honest, and the reason that I wanted to get this wheel was I wanted a travel wheel that used the same bobbins and whirls and everything else as the matchless. You can use most of the whirls from the matchless on here. I think it's recommended that you don't use the sort of the highest speed one on here, just because it's not really built to go that fast. I love the fact that this is actually a bike wheel, and when you flip it around, you can actually find the place where the valve for the bike tyre would have gone, which I kind of love. I love all the quick release levers, they're really straightforward. There's not a huge amount of maintenance to do on it. You pop a little bit of oil just on the top of the rods, but that's pretty much it. The bearings, both the front and rear bearings, are both self-lubricating, so you don't need to do anything with those. So yeah, generally I really like the Sidekick. For me at the moment, it's not seen a huge amount of use recently, just purely because I've been spinning so much on the HANDSPUN mini spinner that I just haven't had the opportunity to spin on this one. So this is probably going to get sold at some point relatively soon. I won't be too sad about that, just because it's definitely served a really good purpose for me, and yeah, I've been happy with it. So this one also has a little story behind it, not quite as much as the Matchless, but I did an in search of on the UK Spinners group, and I said I'm in search of a SCHACT Sidekick. I know there's probably not very many out there secondhand, but you know, if anybody wants to sell one, please get in touch. And a lady from not too far away up in Exeter dropped me a line and said, yeah, I've got one for sale. And the day that we decided to arrange to go and have me collect it was actually the day when there was a huge storm and the whole of the railway line along by Dawlish was completely washed away. And I think the train before mine was the last one to actually go through. My train was the first one that got stopped. So consequently, I didn't make it to collect it that day, but I did manage to get there via a bus replacement service a week or so later. So it finally came home with me, and I've been really, really happy with it. As I say, because I have the mini spinner, it's unfortunately not getting a lot of use at the moment. But I do think it's a great wheel. Again, very well made, very sturdy. I guess one of the things that I would say against the SCHACT wheels is the price of some of the extras like bobbins, particularly in the UK. The cost is getting a little bit ridiculous, especially when you compare it to things like Ashford bobbins. I know they're a whole other ball game, but the cost does mount up. But if you already have, as I did, a Matchless with 5 bobbins, and then you add, or 6 bobbins, and then you add another 3 from this, that's plenty for anybody to be getting on with. Incidentally, in terms of the bobbins, this is actually a bobbin from the Matchless. The Sidekick comes with plastic-ended bobbins, and I think actually now the entire thing is plastic bobbins right the way through. So yeah, it's a detail, but it might be important to you. One of the cool things with this is that it actually comes with a clip-on strap that you clip onto a couple of parts of the wheel back here, and that actually allows you to carry it over your shoulder. So once it's all folded up, you can actually clip this on and it allows you to travel with it. So to pack it all up and put it away again, I'm actually going to turn this around so that you can see where the quick releases are. So we undo quick release here and quick release here. I then slip the drive band and the brake bands off over the back temporarily so that I can take the flyer and bobbin off. Put those to one side. The way that I put it away is always taking the drive band and brake bands and just popping them over the Scotch tension adjustment knob, just to stop it from flapping around and kind of getting in the way. Especially if I'm walking around with it, I'll often find that the drive bands come off completely by the time I get home. Pop the whirl off and then just screw that back into the side of the wheel. And then the bobbin can actually be held nice and safely in here, and you just fold the maidens back over it and then use the quick releases to hold it down. Onto the treadles. Again, we're just going to undo the little screws on the treadles. Undo the quick release on the front, spread the treadles apart, and then they just fold back up again. You do have to sometimes readjust where the rods are to allow them to actually fit perfectly back into place. And then you just pop the screws in again to hold the treadles back against the frame. So I hope that was useful and interesting information for you. I no longer have the SCHACHT Sidekick. It is one of the 2 wheels that I destashed when I was moving house. I wanted to try and get rid of as much stuff as possible when I moved house, and I did. I did get rid of a lot of stuff. I destashed a lot of yarn on Ravelry. I also got rid of the 2 spinning wheels. There is still more that I can destash, and I will. And the entire side extension is kind of full of boxes right now because I can't really unpack my craft room until these guys have got free reign of the rest of the house. So yeah, there you go. That's the next project really, is to get their room sorted out after the gate has been installed. The Sidekick went to a new home in, I want to say Westbury. I think it was right. Castle Carey. There you go, Castle Carey, near to Westbury. And the Ashford Joy went to Bristol. So hopefully their new owners are enjoying them. They were both great wheels. I just didn't need 4 spinning wheels. That's kind of ridiculous overkill. To be honest, I could probably live without the matchless at this point as well, but that's probably just because I haven't been spinning a lot. I still have projects that I need to finish on the matchless as well. So maybe not destashing that one yet. And I think my mum would probably kill me if I got rid of that as well. So there we go. So yeah, we've got rid of some spinning wheels, haven't we, Safi? Yeah. What else did I get rid of? I got rid of loads of yarn on Ravelry. There is still some in my destash. So if you're looking for any destash yarn, have a little look on Ravelry on my profile. I'm Ibex on Ravelry. So go and have a little look there. I can only really post to the UK, unfortunately. So UK viewers, you are more than welcome to go and have a little browse there. I think there is still some yarn from Wildfire Fibres, which was Victoria's name before she was Eden Cottage. So there's still a few skeins there. I have some beautiful skeins from her. There are just a couple that I think I will be less likely to use than the others. So those are on destash. So I guess finally, I have not done any spinning at all since I moved into this house, mostly because of the cats and the fact that every time I try and think about taking the spinning wheel out, I just think, oh God, this is going to end really badly. So if anybody out there has any tips about how to introduce small kittens to spinning wheels without disasters happening, then feel free to let me know. And I think that is probably about it for this episode of Tiny Fibre Studio. I will still be doing Tiny Fibre Studio even though Handspun 17 is over. I probably won't do it as frequently as I was in the beginning because there's just too much other stuff going on right now I just don't have the time to commit to doing one episode a week. But hopefully I will try and do a little bit of an update for you every so often. I will be starting some new projects, hopefully, once I've finished off some of my works in progress. I'll almost certainly start another sock project almost immediately. It's really funny, when I started those socks, I told you that I didn't really wear a lot of hand knit socks. That's still true out of the house, but increasingly I am finding that I'm wearing them around the house a lot more. So I will almost certainly start a new sock project almost straight away. And I've got one lined up that I think is either going to be 2 colours of Malabrigo striped, probably in similar colours to this, or I think it might be yellow and, yeah, no, it is yellow and sort of tealy dark blue. So either that, or I have one of the Wildfire Fibres yarns, so Victoria before she was eating cottage. I have one of her yarns that I've been thinking about doing some socks with. So that will probably be my first cast on of 2018. Oops. So yeah, there you go. That is a bit of a roundup. Thank you guys for sticking with me. As usual, please feel free to leave me a comment, to ask me any questions, any requests for different topics that you'd like me to talk about, any of that kind of stuff. More than happy to hear from you. The comments is the easiest place to get hold of me, because I try and check in and kind of answer as many comments as I can. In between now and the next episode, you can find me on Instagram as Tiny Fibre Studio, and on Ravelry I am Ibex. Please let me know if you enjoyed this episode. Thank you all so much for sticking with me in my little hiatus there. Hopefully there will be some more regular episodes coming around, but in the meantime, have a happy new year. I hope you have a great 2018, and I will see you in 2018.